On a cliff by the sea, older than memory, there stood a city that had been built 1,000 times. Its people did not know this. They believed, as all people do, that they were the first to arrive at wisdom. At the center of the city stood a well. Its stones were worn smooth, though no one could remember who had placed them. Each morning the citizens gathered there to draw water and to speak of progress. They spoke of how far they had come, how much they had learned, how different they were from those who came before, though they could not say who those before people were. One evening, as the sun sank into the sand, like a coin slipping into a purse, a traveler arrived. He was neither young nor old, and his eyes held a peculiar stillness, as though they had watched storms without ever being caught in one. The people welcomed him eagerly, for they loved new voices, especially those that might confirm their belief that they stood at the height of time itself. "Tell us," they said, "what do you see in our city?" The traveler drank from the well before answering. "I see beauty," he said, "and I see the beginning of forgetting." They laughed. "Forgetting? We record everything. Our histories are written. Our knowledge grows each day." The traveler nodded. "Yes, you remember facts, but you forget yourselves." This puzzled them. One of the scholars stepped forward. "Explain." So the traveler pointed to the well. "Who built it?" he asked. No one answered. "And yet," he continued, "every life here depends on it." A murmur passed through the crowd. "You inherit tools, systems, ideas and wounds," the traveler said, "but you do not inherit the memory of the heart that created them. So you use them without understanding, and you repeat the same choices that made them necessary." The scholar frowned. "But we are wiser than those before us. We have improved everything." The traveler smiled, not unkindly. "Every generation believes it has improved everything, and in many ways it has. Your tools sharpen, your reach extends, your voices travel farther. But tell me, has your fear diminished? Has your hunger for power softened? Has your need to be right, to be seen, to be safe at the cost of others? Has that changed?" Silence settled like dust. A young woman spoke quietly. "No," the traveler nodded. "That is why your story repeats, not because time is a circle, but because you are." He drew a shape in the sand, a spiral. "You move forward, yes, but you carry the same inner patterns. Unexamined fear becomes control. Control becomes oppression. Oppression breeds suffering. Suffering awakens longing. Longing inspires change, and change, if not understood, grows again into fear." The people watched the spiral as if it might move. "Why don't we break it?" someone asked. "You try," said the traveler, "again and again." "Then why do we fail?" "Because you try to change the world before you understand the part of the world that is looking through your own eyes." The wind stirred. "Each of you believes the problem is out there, in rulers, in systems, in other tribes, in other beliefs. And so you fight, you build, you destroy, you rebuild. But you bring the same mind into every structure. And so every structure, in time, becomes a mirror of that mind." The scholar's voice was softer now. "So nothing is new?" The traveler looked toward the horizon where the last light clung stubbornly to the sky. "New forms appear endlessly," he said. "New cities, new technologies, new names for old desires. But the roots, the fears, the hopes, the illusions, the longing to matter, the terror of being nothing, these remain largely unchanged." He turned back to them. "That is what was meant when it was said, 'There is nothing new under the sun,' not because life is stagnant, but because the human heart, left unexamined, tells the same story in every age." The young woman stepped closer to the spiral. "Then what is the way out?" The traveler's eyes met hers. "To see," he said simply. "To see your fear as it arises, before it becomes action. To see your desire before it becomes grasping. to see your anger before it becomes harm, to see the stories you tell about yourself and others, and to question them. He erased part of the spiral with his foot. When even a few begin to do this, the pattern does not disappear, but it loosens, and where it loosens, something truly new can enter, not from time, but from awareness. The well creaked softly as the night deepened. "Will the cycle ever end?" the scholar asked. The traveler considered this. "The cycle is not the enemy," he said. "It is the teacher. It repeats until it is understood." And with that, he turned and walked into the darkness beyond the city. By morning, he was gone. But the spiral remained in the sand, and for the first time, as the people gathered at the well, they did not speak of how far they had come. They stood quietly, each wondering not about the world they were building, but about the one building it. At the lip of the well was left a scroll each supposed had been left and written by the traveler. The young woman picked up the scroll and began to read. The world each person believes they are living in is not just the shared, external world of events. It is the interpreted world constructed inside their own mind. And the one doing that constructing, the one building it, is shaped by memory, fear, desire, and identity. So even when the outer world changes, the inner builder often does not. Let's go deeper. Each person at that well walked away carrying an invisible lens. One man, who had been betrayed in the past, saw the world as a place where trust was dangerous. When someone smiled at him, he did not see kindness. He saw potential deception. So he guarded himself. His guardedness made others feel unwelcome. They, in turn, became distant. And to him, this confirmed what he already knew. People cannot be trusted. Another, who had long felt unseen, interpreted every silence as rejection. If a friend failed to respond quickly, it meant they did not care. From that interpretation came resentment. From resentment came coldness. And from that coldness came actual distance, again confirming the original belief, "I am not valued." A third believed deeply in his own righteousness. To him, disagreement was not difference, it was threat. So he argued, corrected, imposed. Others resisted. Conflict grew. And he walked away thinking, the world is full of ignorance. Do you see the pattern? Each person believes they are reacting to reality. But in truth, they are reacting to their interpretation of reality. An interpretation shaped by past experience, unexamined assumptions, and emotional habits. And here is the crucial part. Their reactions then shape the very reality they experience next. This is the loop. Not a grand cosmic conspiracy, but a quiet, relentless feedback cycle. You perceive through a conditioned lens. You act based on that perception. Your actions influence others and the environment. The response you receive reinforces your original perception, and so the builder strengthens the blueprint. Over time, this becomes identity. I am the kind of person who... People are just... The world is... These are not just thoughts. They are architectural decisions, and because most people never step outside the builder to examine it, they unknowingly rebuild the same structure again and again, just with different materials, different people, different eras. This is why entire societies repeat patterns too. A fearful population builds systems of control. Those systems create oppression. Oppression breeds unrest. Unrest justifies more control. And each generation, believing they are solving a new problem, is often responding to the emotional inheritance of the last. The scale changes, but the builder is the same. So when the story says they began to wonder about the one building it, it means this. For the first time, they turned their attention inward, not to judge themselves, but to observe. Why do I assume what I assume? What am I afraid of right now? What story am I telling about this moment? Is what I'm seeing actually there? Or is it something I've brought with me? This kind of seeing creates a small but profound gap. A gap between stimulus and interpretation. A gap between feeling and reaction. And in that gap, the cycle can loosen. Because once the builder is seen, it is no longer completely in control. A man who sees his distrust as a pattern rather than a truth may, for a moment, choose openness. A woman who recognizes her fear of rejection may pause before withdrawing. A leader who notices his need to dominate may question it before acting. These are small shifts, but history is nothing more than the accumulation of such moments, either unconscious or aware. So human existence appears cyclical, not because change is impossible, but because self-awareness is rare. Most people inherit a builder and never question its design. They improve the house, decorate it, defend it, but they do not realize they are living inside a structure they are continuously reinforcing. And so the same emotional blueprints echo across generations. What would truly be new under the sun is not a new invention or system or ideology. It would be a human being who sees clearly, in real time, how their inner world is shaping their outer one, and who, in that seeing, is no longer bound to repeat it unconsciously. That is where the cycle begins to break. Not everywhere at once, but anywhere someone is willing to look at the builder instead of only the world it builds. Self-awareness is one of those words people nod at as if it was simple, like just pay attention, but in truth it is far more radical than that. It is not merely knowing what you do, it is seeing in real time why you are about to do it, and recognizing that the impulse is not the same thing as truth. Self-awareness is the capacity to observe your own inner activity as it unfolds. A thought arising in emotion, tightening in the body. A judgment forming a story, attaching itself to what just happened. And instead of immediately becoming that thought or emotion, you see it, not later in reflection, but in the very moment it is happening. For example, someone interrupts you. Without awareness, the chain is instant and invisible. They don't respect me, leads to irritation, leads to sharp response. With awareness, something different happens. There is irritation. There is a thought. They don't respect me. And in that seeing, a quiet question appears. Is that true? Or is that my interpretation? That question is the crack in the cycle. Human beings do not repeat patterns because they are foolish. They repeat them because the mechanism is automatic and feels like reality itself. Fear feels like truth. Anger feels justified. Desire feels necessary. So we act. And because most people never see the mechanism generating these reactions, they assume this is just who I am. This is just how the world works. So the builder remains invisible, and therefore unchallenged. It doesn't break the cycle by force. It breaks it by interrupting identification. The moment you see, this anger is arising in me, instead of, I am right to be angry, you are no longer completely inside the reaction. And when you are not fully inside it, you are not compelled to act it out in the same way. That changes everything, because the cycle depends on unconscious continuity. The same perception leading to the same reaction, producing the same outcome. Self-awareness inserts a pause, and in that pause, something new becomes possible. A different response, or even no response at all. That is how the pattern weakens. Not dramatically at first, but reliably. The cycle persists at the collective level because not everyone is aware. Awareness fluctuates, fear and desire are powerful and recurring. So history, at scale, continues to echo. But that does not mean nothing changes. What does change, slowly, unevenly, is the number of people who begin to see. And every person who sees clearly becomes a kind of interruption in the pattern. They escalate conflict less, project less, and act with more pause. The key is this. If you can monitor and observe the thought, you are not the thought. So ask the question, what are you? And And who is the builder?